In the mid-90s, there was a series that brought something new to the table, combining the mech genre and adding in a bunch of psychological mindfuckery into the mix. Oddly enough, this show became so popular and rather infamous in both Japan and the West that it spawned rewrites to the original series as well as a set of rebuild films in recent years. But today we're not talking about Evangelion. Instead, we're talking about a different series that's similar to it, but many people may refer to it as the bastard cousin made by an up-and-coming animation studio. RahXephon is a 26-episode drama romance mecha series based on the original manga by Takeaki Momose and published by Shogakukan. The manga is currently available in North America thanks to Viz Media and in Australia thanks to Madden Entertainment. The anime from director Yutaka Izubuchi and Studio Bones aired during the winter 2002 season, and as of this review, you can find RahXephon thanks to, Section 23 Films in North America, more formally known as ADV Films, 101 Films in the UK, and Siren Visual in Australia.
In a world where time passes at a crawl and the blood of your neighbor runs blue, 17-year-old high school student Ayato Kamina goes about his daily life within Tokyo Jupiter, oblivious to the world around him, having been educated with the fact that all of civilization but Tokyo has been destroyed. But all that changes when the mysterious civilization Mu invades his home, raining destruction down from the sky in the form of strange monsters called dolums. The events that occur next will lead Ayato to the mysterious woman named Reika Mishima, to the truth of their existence, the discovery of what and who he is, and to the powerful angelic robot, RahXephon.
If you are familiar with Studio Bones' early work, then you would probably cite Wolf's Rain, Oran High School Host and Fullmetal Alchemist, among others. But as the earliest of these list of examples, no seriously, RahXephon is a very early work for the studio, you may be wondering how well it does as a predecessor.
My answer is a resounding yes. There are small moments where the animation quality is rather lackluster. However, because of the symbolism and psychological aspects of the show, these can create some of the most beautiful and captivating moments in terms of animation. The fight sequences are really fluid and the character designs are full of a wide range of expressions, with the exception of a couple of characters for more specific reasons. As for the soundtrack, orchestral is the name of the game, with a heavy emphasis on strings and woodwind instruments as well as piano in order to help bring those intense and fun moments to life.
I mentioned before that the only reason people have at least heard about RahXephon is the comparisons it gets to Evangelion. Now, it may be similar in both animation and in story, but there's so much more that RahXephon has to offer.
There are two major pieces that make this story: the fight between Terra and the Mu, and the love story between Ayato and Haruka. That is the essential difference when talking about those Eva comparisons. I may not know much about Eva, but I at least know that RahXephon's story is much more than what people think it to be. The writing for the story is wonderful, blending its genres of mech, drama, and romance together brilliantly, but it also displays a psychological aspect as well, causing us to view our characters in a much more darker light at points throughout the series. It takes on themes of discrimination, honesty, and love in multiple fashions, giving us different forms of those themes among the large cast of characters. Those forms can be rather simple, but they can also have complexity and cause consequences for our characters and their world.
There are just so many elements and layers to this series that you would feel so many emotions and you would either sympathize or have disgust for certain characters. And I guarantee you that tears will be shed by the time you finish this series. You know, unless you're a heartless human being. There's a huge cast of characters for RahXephon, and I kind of already talked about bits of character development when I was talking about the story, so I'm going to keep this section of the review about our four major characters, starting with Ayato.
With Ayato, his biggest struggle is coming to terms as to who he is and retaining who that person is throughout the course of the series. He calls himself into question on several occasions and desires to know and understand the truth of his life and the world, causing a massive inner struggle. This leads us to Haruka as she works to protect Ayato and sacrifices quite a bit in order to keep him safe, as well as help him to understand everything, even if that means her family and even civilians have to suffer in the process. Haruka and her past are a mystery that somehow manages to connect to Ayato in many different capacities, making her desire to help him all the more compelling. Kwon is one of the bigger mysteries this series has to offer, because she herself doesn't have much knowledge as to who she is and why she acts the way she acts. Over the course of the series, Kwon has just as much, if not more, than Ayato, as we learn that both of them have similar circumstances. Lastly, there's Reika, who's an even bigger mystery. We get small hints here and there as to who she is, but they don't give us too much too soon, so we don't learn about Reika's story until the final few episodes. These four may have the most out of the entire cast, but I do still want to bring up at least three others: Megumi, Itsuki, and Kunigi, because their stories are also extremely interesting and manage to tie themselves into the main storyline in one way or another, and do so rather well.
RahXephon's English dub can be rather hit or miss depending on the performance you're looking at, but I'd say it's solid overall.
I honestly have got to say that this is some of the best work I've seen from both Chris Patton and Monica Rial, who play Ayato and Haruka. With Patton, since I only really know him for his roles in Welcome to NHK and Firebrain and Princess Tutu, it's a wonderful change to see him in a more dramatic role. As for Rial, it's a similar situation, except it's also rather nice to see her in a non-moe type role, as I've seen her much more in comedic and younger female roles. So to see Patton and Rial both in more dramatic roles, as well as some of their earlier work, is something I love to see, even if Patton can be a little oddball in his performance. Kira Vincent Davis's performance as Kwon was a bit more robotic and otherworldly at times, which is actually a decent fit for the character. Meanwhile, Mandy Clark's portrayal of Reika was also rather otherworldly, but still had its moments even though it wasn't really that outstanding. As for other standouts to keep your eyes out for, there's Jay Hickman's Itsuki, Hilary Haig's Megumi, Andy McAdam's Futagami, Vic Mignogna's Toragai, John Dramillion's Kunigi, and Iliot Gardolia's Ishiki.
Which is nice to say, since his voice acting days are probably done. When the world is still fused with sound, RahXephon is a brilliantly written mech series with underlining use of symbolism and romance to make for something truly compelling. As the third of Studio Bones' overall work, I'd say it's one of their best, up there with Oran and Soul Eater, though there's still a handful of early work that I've yet to see, with one of which we're going to run into in the next few weeks. For those who consider this series to be the bastard cousin of Evangelion, you really should give this one a try just so you can see how different and beautiful it is. Either way, it's a series that I think everyone should see, though some may or may not sit very well with some of the imagery and themes that the show has. But if you give it a little bit of your time, then you can make a decision for yourself. Next time, we meet anime's most well-known outlaw. Until then, otaku on, my friends.